What if I told you that ancient Romans believed tying fox genitals to your head could cure a headache? Or that drinking water left behind by an ox was considered legitimate medical treatment? Welcome to the absolutely bizarre world of Roman medicine, where the line between healing and, well, complete insanity was incredibly thin. Today, we're diving deep into some of the strangest medical practices from one of history's greatest civilizations. Before we get into the truly wild remedies, we need to understand how Romans thought about medicine in the first place. Unlike today's evidence-based medicine, Roman medical practice was a chaotic mix of Greek philosophy, folk traditions, superstition, and surprisingly, some genuine medical innovation. Roman medicine was heavily influenced by Greek medical theories, particularly the concept of the four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Romans believed that illness occurred when these humors became imbalanced in the body. The goal of any treatment was to restore equilibrium, which could be achieved through bloodletting, inducing vomiting, using enemas, or making patients sweat profusely. But here is the fascinating part. There was no formal training required to become a doctor in ancient Rome. Anyone could hang up a shingle and start practicing medicine. This lack of regulation meant that medical knowledge varied wildly from practitioner to practitioner, and theories developed in completely different directions, depending on who you asked. Some Roman physicians, like Asclepiades, actually advocated for relatively humane treatments. He strongly believed in hot and cold baths as remedies for illness, and deliberately used techniques that didn't inflict severe pain on patients. His methods included massage, poultices, fresh air, corrective diet, and even specialized treatment for mental diseases where he could distinguish between hallucinations and delusions. But for every rational physician, like Asclepiades, there were dozens of practitioners relying on folk remedies that ranged from mildly odd to absolutely horrifying. And that brings us to our main topic. Let's start with headaches, something we've all experienced. Today, you might take an aspirin or ibuprofen. Ancient Romans? They had different ideas. One popular remedy for headaches involved drinking water that had been left behind by an ox. Not just any water near an ox, mind you, but specifically water that the ox had been drinking from and left behind. The logic here is completely unclear. Did Romans think oxen had some magical property that transferred to water? Was it the saliva? We may never know, but this was genuinely recommended as a legitimate treatment. But it gets stranger. Another headache remedy that appears in historical records is even more bizarre: fastening a fox's genitals to the head. Yes, you read that correctly. Romans apparently believed that strapping fox reproductive organs to your skull would cure a headache. Where did this idea come from? Ancient medical texts, particularly Pliny the Elder's Natural History, cataloged hundreds of remedies derived from animals. Pliny's work, written in the 1st century CE, was essentially an encyclopedia of everything Romans knew about the natural world, including an extensive section on remedies derived from living creatures. The thinking behind animal-based remedies often involved sympathetic magic or the doctrine of signatures, the belief that nature provides cures that resemble the ailment, or that powerful animals transfer their strength to the patient. Foxes were considered cunning and hardy animals, so perhaps Romans thought their vitality could be transferred through their most vital parts. Headaches weren't the only ailment Romans tried to cure with bizarre animal remedies. Let's talk about constipation, not the most glamorous topic, but apparently a serious concern in ancient Rome. The recommended treatment? Placing wolf's bile on the navel. That's right. Romans believed that applying bile from a wolf's gallbladder to your belly button would relieve constipation. The logic here seems to involve the wolf's reputation as a powerful predator. Wolves were symbols of strength and ferocity in Roman culture. After all, Rome's legendary founders Romulus and Remus were said to have been raised by a she-wolf. Perhaps Romans believed that the wolf's fierce digestive system could somehow transfer its power through its bile. This wasn't just folk knowledge passed down orally. These remedies were recorded in medical texts and treatises that were considered serious medical literature at the time. Physicians would have recommended these treatments with complete confidence, and patients would have followed their advice, desperate for relief. Other digestive remedies were equally strange. For stomach problems, Romans might gargle with a solution of water and mustard. For scurvy, they'd apply ointments made from dock leaves and herbs. Some of these herbal remedies actually had medicinal properties, but they existed alongside treatments that were pure superstition. The use of animal parts in Roman medicine extended far beyond the remedies we've already discussed. Ancient Romans had what can only be described as a complete animal pharmacy, where virtually every creature had some medicinal application. Pliny the Elder's Natural History contains thousands of remedies using animal parts. We're talking about everything from birds to fish, from domestic animals to wild beasts. The variety is absolutely staggering. For example, Romans used unwashed wool applied directly to sores. They believed egg yolk had medicinal properties for various conditions. They used amber, which is fossilized tree resin, in various medical preparations. This practice actually came from folk remedies, and different terms were used in different areas of the empire. What's particularly interesting is that some Roman medical practices were based on observation and genuine therapeutic effect, while others were pure magical thinking. Romans understood basic wound care, used herbal remedies that actually worked like fennel for nervous disorders. They believed it calmed the nerves, and elecampane, also known as horseal, for digestive problems. But they also believed in treatments with no medical basis whatsoever. The challenge for historians is separating the wheat from the chaff, figuring out which Roman medical practices were genuinely helpful, and which were elaborate placebos at best and harmful at worst. The interesting thing is that even incorrect remedies might have had a placebo effect. If a patient believed that wolf bile on their navel would cure constipation, the reduction in stress and anxiety from feeling like they were receiving treatment might have actually helped with the condition. The mind-body connection was strong, even if the medical theory was completely wrong. So the question is, why would an advanced civilization like Rome, with its incredible engineering, sophisticated government, and complex legal system, believe in remedies that seem absurd to us today? The answer lies in how Romans understood causation and the natural world. Without microscopes, germ theory, or controlled scientific experiments, Romans had to make sense of illness through observation, tradition, and philosophical reasoning. Many bizarre remedies came from the doctrine of signatures, the idea that nature provides cures that look like the ailment or body part they meant to treat. Others came from associative magic. If an animal had a quality you wanted, strength, cunning, ferocity, consuming or wearing parts of that animal might transfer that quality to you. There was also cultural transmission. These remedies weren't invented overnight. They were passed down through generations, modified, recorded in texts, and became part of medical orthodoxy. Once something was written in an authoritative text like Pliny's Natural History, it gained legitimacy, regardless of whether it actually worked. Additionally, medicine in Rome was as much art as science. Doctors developed personal theories based on their individual experiences and philosophical beliefs. Without the scientific method to test and falsify theories, there was no way to definitively prove that fox genitals didn't cure headaches. If someone tried it and their headache eventually went away, as headaches do, that could be seen as confirmation. We should also remember that Roman medicine wasn't entirely irrational. Alongside these bizarre remedies, Romans made genuine contributions to medical knowledge. They understood basic anatomy, developed surgical instruments, pioneered the Caesarean section, which is named after Julius Caesar, though probably not invented for him, and created public health infrastructure like aqueducts and sewage systems that prevented disease. It's easy to laugh at these ancient remedies from our modern perspective, But we should remember that future generations will probably look back at some of our current medical practices with equal bewilderment. Some Roman medical practices have actually survived in various forms. The use of hot and cold water therapy, which Asclepiades championed, is still used today in physical therapy and spa treatments. Many of the herbs Romans used, like fennel, are still recognized for their medicinal properties. Even the Caesarean section, a surgical procedure developed or refined during the Roman period, is one of the most common surgical procedures worldwide today. The strange animal-based remedies, however, didn't survive the advance of medical science. As medicine became more empirical and evidence-based, treatments that couldn't demonstrate actual effectiveness were gradually abandoned. Still, elements of folk medicine persist around the world, and some alternative medicine practices today aren't that different in spirit. From Roman remedies, they rebased on tradition and belief rather than rigorous scientific testing. The story of Roman medicine reminds us that medical knowledge is built slowly, through trial and error, observation, and increasingly sophisticated understanding of how the body works. The Romans were doing their best with the knowledge and tools available to them. They observed that some things seemed to help patients, recorded those observations, and passed them down as medical knowledge. So the next time you have a headache and reach for some pain medication, take a moment to be grateful you don't have to strap fox genitals to your head. And if you're constipated, appreciate that you have better options than wolf bile on your navel. The bizarre world of Roman medicine shows us how far we've come in understanding the human body and treating disease. But it also shows us something else. Humans have always been resourceful, creative, and desperate to heal themselves and their loved ones, even if their methods were, let's say, questionable.